For 8 years, David Miller drove for Uber in the Washington, D.C. area. 5 stars. Thousands of trips. Clean car. Polite conversation when passengers wanted it. Silence when they didn't. He was the perfect driver. Punctual. Professional. Forgettable. The kind of middle-aged man you'd see and immediately forget. Gray hair, reading glasses. A slight limp that hinted at an old injury, but nothing he ever talked about. His passengers included politicians, tourists, business people, and occasionally, high-ranking military officers. He treated them all the same. Picked them up, dropped them off, collected his fare, moved on to the next ride. Until a cold Tuesday morning in November when he accepted a ride from the Pentagon to Reagan National Airport. The passenger was a 2-star general in full-dress uniform traveling to a conference. They'd been driving for 3 minutes in comfortable silence when David said, "Traffic's light this morning. We'll have you there in 12 minutes, sir." The general's head snapped up from his phone. His face went pale. His hand started shaking. "Stop the car," he whispered. "What?" "Stop the car. Pull over, now." David pulled into a gas station parking lot, concerned. "Sir, are you okay? Do you need medical—" The general was staring at him with an expression David had seen before. Recognition. Disbelief. The slow dawning of impossible memory. "Your voice," the general said. "I know your voice. Fallujah, November 10th, 2004. The Humvee. The fire. You pulled me out." David's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He hadn't talked about Fallujah in 20 years. Hadn't wanted to. But the general wasn't done. "You're Sergeant David Miller, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, combat medic. You saved my life." In the next 15 minutes, 2 men would confront a past neither had been able to forget. One who'd become a general. One who'd become an Uber driver. Both shaped by a single moment of fire and blood 20 years ago. If this story of hidden heroes and debts that can never be repaid already has you hooked, hit that like button and subscribe. What happens when a 2-star general realizes his Uber driver once carried him out of a burning vehicle under enemy fire will remind you that some bonds transcend rank and time. Now let's go back to that day in Fallujah that neither of them could ever forget. The Second Battle of Fallujah was the deadliest urban combat U.S. forces had seen since Vietnam. House-to-house fighting, IEDs, snipers, insurgents who'd had months to prepare defenses. Sergeant David Miller, 24 years old, Navy corpsman attached to 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, had been in Fallujah for 6 days. 6 days that felt like 6 years. He'd treated gunshot wounds in the middle of firefights, performed chest decompressions while rounds cracked overhead, carried wounded Marines through streets where every window could hide a sniper. His medical bag was running low on supplies. His hands shook when he tried to eat. He hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch since the battle began. But he kept going. Because that's what docs did. Marines fought. Docs kept them alive. On November 10th, his platoon was conducting a clearance operation in the Jolan district. The hardest fighting. The worst casualties. They'd been moving through a residential area when the call came over the radio. IED strike. Main road. Multiple casualties. Vehicle on fire. We need corpsmen immediately. David grabbed his bag and ran. The Humvee was an inferno. An IED had detonated directly beneath it, rupturing the fuel tank. Black smoke poured into the gray Fallujah sky. 3 Marines were already out, wounded but mobile, being treated by another corpsman. But someone was still inside. David could hear screaming. He ran toward the fire. "Doc, don't. It's gonna blow." Someone shouted. David ignored them. Someone was alive in that vehicle. That's all that mattered. The heat was incredible. Paint blistering. Metal glowing. The smell of burning rubber and fuel choking. David got to the passenger side. Through the smoke, he could see a figure. Young officer, first lieutenant, maybe 23 years old, trapped by twisted metal. Leg pinned. Conscious. Screaming. "I got you," David yelled over the roar of flames. "I'm getting you out." "I'm stuck. My leg. I know. Hold on." David reached into the inferno. The heat seared his arms. His uniform started smoking. He grabbed the lieutenant under the armpits and pulled. Nothing. The metal had him pinned, an explosion behind them. Secondary detonation. Ammunition cooking off. "Leave me," the lieutenant screamed. "It's gonna blow." "Not happening, sir." David braced his feet against the Humvee frame and pulled harder. His back screamed. His arms felt like they were on fire. The lieutenant's leg finally came free. David dragged him out and away from the vehicle. 30 feet, 40, 50. The Humvee exploded. The blast wave threw them both to the ground. Shrapnel whistled overhead. David covered the lieutenant's body with his own. When the smoke cleared, the Humvee was a burning skeleton. If they'd been inside another 10 seconds, they'd be dead. David immediately started treating the lieutenant. Compound fracture left leg, burns on both arms, possible internal injuries, but alive. "Stay with me, sir," David said, starting an IV. "You're gonna be fine. Medevac's inbound. You're going home." The lieutenant grabbed David's arm with his good hand. "You saved my life. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did, sir." "That's the job. What's your name?" "Sergeant Miller." "Doc Miller." "Right, Lieutenant Bridger. Thomas Bridger. I'm never going to forget this. Never going to forget you. You don't owe me anything, sir. Just get better. That's all I need." The medevac helicopter arrived. They loaded Lieutenant Bridger aboard. David watched it disappear into the sky, then picked up his medical bag and moved to the next casualty. Just another day in Fallujah. 3 days later, David himself was hit. Shrapnel from an RPG. His right leg was shredded from knee to ankle. They medevaced him to Germany, then Walter Reed. He'd spend 8 months in recovery. Multiple surgeries. Physical therapy. Learning to walk again. When he was finally discharged in 2005, he had a Purple Heart, a limp he'd never lose, and nightmares that would follow him for decades. He never saw Lieutenant Bridger again. David had been driving for Uber for 8 years. After leaving the Navy in 2005, he'd tried a dozen different jobs. Security guard, medical supply sales, EMT work, nothing stuck. The transition to civilian life had been harder than he'd expected. The nightmares didn't stop. The hypervigilance never faded. Crowds made him nervous. Loud noises made him flinch. His marriage had fallen apart in 2009. His wife had tried, but living with a broken veteran was too much. He didn't blame her. Uber had been perfect. No boss, no coworkers. Just him, his car, and passengers who came and went. He could control his environment. Work when he wanted. Stop when the memories got too loud. He lived in a small apartment in Alexandria. Drove a well-maintained Honda Accord. Kept to himself. His passenger rating was 4.97 stars. He was proud of that. In a life where so much had gone wrong, he was good at this one thing. On November 7th, 2024, 20 years and 3 days since. Fallujah. David got a ping for a pickup at the Pentagon. The app showed Thomas B. Destination: Reagan National Airport. David accepted and drove to the Pentagon's taxi stand. The passenger was a Marine general in dress blues. 2 stars on each shoulder. Rows of ribbons. Command presence that made junior officers scramble. David got out and opened the rear door. "Good morning, sir. I'm David, Reagan National?" "Correct," the general said, settling into the back seat. He was on his phone immediately, responding to emails. David pulled into traffic. The drive to the airport would take 15 minutes if traffic cooperated. They drove in silence for 3 minutes. David checked his GPS. "Traffic's light this morning. We'll have you there in 12 minutes, sir." In the rearview mirror, David saw the general's head snap up. The phone nearly dropped from his hands. The general's face had gone pale. His hands were shaking. "Stop the car," the general said. His voice was barely a whisper. David immediately checked his mirrors, concerned. "Sir, are you all right?" "Stop the car. Pull over, now." David pulled into a gas station parking lot. He turned in his seat, worried. "Sir, do you need medical attention? Are you having chest pain?" The general was staring at him, not blinking. His eyes were wet. "Your voice," the general said. "I know your voice." David felt something cold settle in his stomach. A recognition he didn't want. "Fallujah," the general continued. "November 10th, 2004. The Humvee. The IED, the fire. You pulled me out." Time seemed to stop. David looked at the general's face. Really looked. 20 years older. Gray at the temples. Lines around the eyes. But the face was familiar. Young lieutenant. Screaming in a burning vehicle. Leg trapped. Terrified. "Lieutenant Bridger?" David said quietly. "Namas. Major General Thomas Bridger now. And you're Sergeant David Miller. 1st Battalion, 8th Marines. Combat medic. Doc Miller." They sat in silence for a long moment. 20 years collapsing into seconds. "I've been looking for you," Bridger said finally. "For 20 years. I tried to find you after I recovered. The Navy said you'd been discharged. Medical retirement. I wrote letters to your last known address. They all came back undeliverable. I moved around a lot," David said. "Wasn't in a good place for a while. I wanted to thank you, properly, for what you did. You saved my life. You ran into a burning vehicle. You pulled me out. You nearly died. I was a corpsman. That was the job. Don't diminish it. I've been a Marine for 30 years now. I've seen combat in 4 wars. I've commanded thousands of Marines. And I have never seen anything braver than what you did that day. You didn't hesitate. Not for a second." David's hands were gripping the steering wheel. The memories were flooding back. The heat, the smoke, the screaming. The explosion. "I was just doing my job, sir. Any doc would have done the same." "No, not any doc. You. And because of you, I got to go home. I got to marry my high school sweetheart. I have 2 daughters now. I've had a career. I've lived. All because you risked your life to pull me out of that fire." Bridger pulled out his phone and showed David a photo. A family. Beautiful wife. 2 young women in their 20s. My daughters. Sarah and Emma. They exist because you saved me. My wife, Jennifer. I got to marry her because you saved me. 20 years of life. 20 years of memories. Because of you. David felt his eyes burning. He hadn't cried about Fallujah in years. Had trained himself not to think about it. "I'm glad you made it, sir. I'm glad you got your life. What about you?" Bridger asked. "What happened after Walter Reed?" David hesitated. How do you tell a 2-star general that you'd become an Uber driver? That the nightmares never stopped? That you'd lost everything and ended up ferrying passengers for $15 a ride? I got out in 2005, medical retirement. The leg never quite healed right. I tried a few different jobs. Ended up driving for Uber. It's good work. Flexible hours. I like it. Bridger was quiet for a moment. You're driving Uber? Yes, sir. The man who saved my life. Who earned a Purple Heart pulling me from a burning vehicle. Who had a promising medical career ahead of him. Is driving for Uber. It's honest work, sir. It is. But it's not enough. Not for what you did. Not for what you sacrificed. Sir, I don't want... What happened to your leg? After Fallujah? David pulled up his pant leg, showing the scarring. RPG, 3 days after I pulled you out. Shrapnel tore it up pretty bad. 8 surgeries at Walter Reed. They saved the leg, but I couldn't pass the physical anymore. Medical discharge. Bridger's jaw tightened. You were wounded saving other Marines. I was wounded doing my job. Stop saying that. Stop minimizing what you did. Bridger's voice had the command tone now. The general, not the grateful survivor. Sergeant Miller, David, you are a hero. You saved my life at great personal risk. You were subsequently wounded in combat. You deserve better than this. I'm doing fine, sir. Are you? Bridger asked quietly. Really? David didn't answer. Couldn't answer because the truth was complicated. After a long moment, Bridger said, I'm going to miss my flight. I'll get you there. We can still make it. No, I'm not going. This is more important. Bridger pulled out his phone and made a call. Colonel Harrison? General Bridger. Cancel my flight to San Diego. Reschedule the conference appearance. Something came up. Family emergency. He hung up and looked at David. How long have you been driving Uber? 8 years. And before that? Various jobs, security, medical sales. EMT for a while. That was good until the nightmares got bad. Hard to be an EMT when loud noises make you hit the deck. PTSD? Yeah, the VA helps. I go to therapy. But some days are harder than others. Bridger nodded. I know. I still have nightmares about Fallujah. About being trapped in that Humvee. About the fire. I wake up screaming sometimes. 20 years later and I can still smell the smoke. They sat in shared silence. 2 veterans. Different ranks. Same scars. I want to help you, Bridger said. I need to help you. You gave me my life back. Let me help give you yours. Sir, I don't need... Yes, you do. And I need to do this. Please. Let me try. Bridger made 3 phone calls in the next 20 minutes, right there in David's Uber. The first was to the Veterans Administration. Bridger knew people. He cut through bureaucracy like a hot knife through butter. This is Major General Thomas Bridger, USMC. I need to speak with Director Morrison. Yes, I'll wait. Director, I have a combat veteran, Purple Heart recipient who saved my life in Fallujah. He's been struggling with PTSD and inadequate VA support for 20 years. I need you to personally review his case. His name is David Miller, former Navy corpsman. I understand you have procedures. I also understand that the Marine Corps provides significant support to VA programs. It would be a shame if that support was reevaluated. Thank you. I'll send his information immediately. David tried to interrupt. Sir, you don't have to... Bridger held up a hand. Second call. Jim? Tom Bridger, I need a favor. No, bigger than that. I have a combat veteran, saved my life in Fallujah, who's been driving Uber for 8 years. Prior medical background. Navy corpsman. Combat experience. PTSD. Needs a fresh start. Your hospital system is always looking for veteran hires, right? Interview tomorrow? Jim, you're a good man. His name is David Miller. I'll send his information. Third call. Colonel Chen? General Bridger. I need you to pull service records. David Miller, former sergeant, Navy corpsman, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, Fallujah, 2004. I want to know what awards he received and what he should have received. Why? Because I'm fairly certain the Marine Corps forgot to properly recognize the man who saved my life. Bridger hung up and looked at David. Okay, here's what's happening. The VA is going to review your case personally. Not some clerk. The director himself. Your benefits should have been better. We're fixing that, sir. I'm not done. Georgetown Hospital System wants to interview you for a position. Patient advocate. Veterans liaison. Helping other vets navigate the medical system. You have the medical background and the lived experience. They'll call you tomorrow. I don't know what to say. Say yes. And one more thing. I had Colonel Chen pull your service records. David, you have a Purple Heart, but you should have more. You pulled me from a burning vehicle under enemy fire. That's a Bronze Star with V for Valor, minimum. Possibly Silver Star. That was 20 years ago. Awards can be reviewed and upgraded. There's no statute of limitations on properly recognizing heroism. I'm putting you in for a Bronze Star. It should have been done 20 years ago. I'm fixing that. David felt overwhelmed. 20 years of struggling. 20 years of just getting by. And now, in 20 minutes, a general was dismantling all his barriers. Why are you doing this? David asked quietly. Because you saved my life and got nothing in return except a ruined leg and PTSD. Because the system failed you. Because I have the power to fix it, and I've been looking for you for 20 years. Because it's the right thing to do. I didn't save you for a reward. I know. That's exactly why you deserve one. Bridger insisted on taking David to lunch, not as general and driver, as Thomas and David, two veterans, two survivors of Fallujah. They went to a quiet diner in Arlington, ordered coffee and sandwiches neither of them touched. Tell me about Fallujah, Bridger said. After you pulled me out, what happened? So David told him about the 3 more days of fighting, the house-to-house combat, the wounded Marines, the RPG that ended his career. I woke up in Germany, David said. They told me my leg was saved, but I'd never pass a physical again. Medical discharge. I was 25 years old and my career was over. And then, I struggled. The nightmares were bad. Every loud noise was an IED. Crowds felt like ambushes. I couldn't hold a job. Lost my marriage. Ended up driving for Uber because I could control when I worked and who I was around. I'm sorry, Bridger said. I'm sorry the system failed you. It's not your fault. Maybe not. But I'm going to fix it anyway. Bridger pulled out his phone and showed David another photo. Him in a hospital bed. Leg in traction. Young and pale and alive. This was taken 2 days after Fallujah. Right after they reconstructed my leg. I looked terrible. You looked alive. That's all that mattered. I wrote you a letter from that hospital bed. Thanked you for saving my life. Promised I'd never forget. But I didn't know how to find you after you were discharged. The Navy wouldn't give me information. Said privacy regulations. I tried for years. It's okay. You didn't owe me anything. Yes, I did. I owed you everything. And today, 20 years later, by pure chance, you became my Uber driver. Do you believe in fate? I don't know. Maybe. I do. This was fate. You saved my life 20 years ago. Today, I get to return the favor. David Miller walked into Georgetown Hospital for his first day of work. Veterans Liaison Coordinator, helping other combat veterans navigate the medical system. Using his experience to help others avoid the struggles he'd faced. The job paid well. Good benefits. Purpose. For the first time in 20 years, David felt like he mattered again. The VA had reviewed his case, upgraded his benefits, connected him with better PTSD resources. He was finally getting the care he'd needed. And on a Tuesday afternoon in May, at a small ceremony at the Pentagon, Major General Thomas Bridger pinned a Bronze Star with Valor device on David's chest. For heroic action on November 10, 2004, in Fallujah, Iraq. Sergeant David Miller, with complete disregard for his own safety, entered a burning vehicle under enemy fire to rescue a trapped Marine officer. His actions reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Navy, and the United States Marine Corps. David's daughters were there. They'd reconnected after years of distance. His ex-wife came too, proud of him, happy he'd finally found help. And standing next to Bridger was his family, his wife, his daughters, all alive because David had run into fire 20 years ago. After the ceremony, Bridger shook David's hand. "Thank you for saving my life, for giving me 20 years with my family, for being a hero even when no one was watching. Thank you," David said, "for finding me, for helping me, for remembering." "I never forgot your voice," Bridger said. "The moment you said traffic's light this morning, I knew. 20 years and I knew immediately. Some things you never forget," David smiled. "Best Uber ride I ever gave. Best Uber ride I ever took." They embraced. Two warriors, two survivors, connected by fire and blood and debt that could never truly be repaid. But trying was enough.